Hi, and welcome to Ask Mark Anything, in which I reply as best I'm able to some of the questions that you've sent in. I'm here in beautiful France at the moment. I'm just about to have some French neighbours come over. The problem being is that they don't speak any English, and my French is appalling. So there's a lot of sort of grinning and smiling and gesticulating, like Robinson Crusoe meeting Man Friday. And the danger, of course, is that they tell me something really awful or tragic, and I'm just sort of smiling like a frenzied hyena on meths or something. So it's always a little bit strenuous trying to communicate with people who you can't communicate with through words. Anyway, let's get on with these are my problems. They don't concern you at all. You don't need to worry about them. The questions. So the first question is from Valerie. And Valerie writes, my husband has had cancer from his nasal cavity and has to go through radiotherapy on his face in the full awareness that A, the cancer may come back, and B, the radiotherapy has a 1 to 2% chance of late onset blindness. He is panicking and worrying like mad, and I don't know the right words to use to help him. Please help. Okay, and thanks, Valerie, for that. And of course, that's an extremely difficult situation for both you and your husband. You don't need me to tell you that. Whenever we're faced in life, I think, with situations in which we just don't know what's going to happen, then the uncertainty can be truly crushing. And what's more, the imagination gets involved. So he has a 1 to 2% chance of late onset blindness from the radiotherapy. And of course, that's a small chance, but the imagination makes it an extremely big chance. And we then start to turn possibility into probability. It's possible that a meteorite might fall through the roof right now and crush me, but it's not probable. And it's still not probable that his sight will be damaged. So I wouldn't necessarily couch that in that way to your husband, but certainly trying to get the idea across that there is a difference between possibility and probability, and it's the imagination that makes the possible feel probable. So that might be a distinction to make. As far as the cancer coming back, of course, the fear of recurrence is very real for people who are going through cancer. We do have free cancer hypnosis audio sessions at hypnosisdownloads.com that your husband's welcome to use, one of which is fear of cancer returning, and there's plenty of other ones as well. He can either have those for free, or he can pay, and the money is donated to a cancer charity. So there's absolutely, he can simply play around with those, see what works best for him, and because relaxing regularly is really, really important, of course, for all of us, all of the time, but especially when you're not well and you've been worrying about stuff. We can't say to him definitively, everything's going to be fine, there's not going to be any problems, the cancer will never return, the blindness is impossible, and so forth. We can't say that. All we can do is help him day by day manage the present time. When people have big worries and fears about the future, then it's very powerful to start living more in the present time, because we don't know exactly what the future has in store for us. None of us do, of course. So helping him be mindful, listening to the sessions, reminding him that there's a difference between possibility and probability, that imagination gets involved and makes the possible feel probable or even inevitable. That's what anxiety does. May well help your husband, but I wish you and him all the very best for a healing and happier future. Okay, Right, what have we got next? We have, this is from Sally, and Sally writes, "Hi Mark, I've just downloaded the Overcome Hypochondria session, and I really hope it works. So I guess the health anxiety, started about 2 years back with minor random panic attacks for no reason. A small headache, a tummy ache, and then I run to ER, the emergency room, thinking I'm having a stroke or a heart attack. In the past year, I've done no less than 4 blood tests, MRIs, ultrasounds, and countless other kinds of tests. The thing is, I've developed this fear of cancer, just that, not any other illnesses. I have no family history of cancer. Only my dad, 75, was diagnosed with prostate cancer at a very early stage, and with radiation he's now completely fine. I keep looking for abnormalities in my body, and then when I find something, I spend countless hours on Google reading things that only make me more concerned and convinced that I'm ill. I keep probing my lymph nodes until they're sore. I keep getting panic attacks. My heart's always racing even when I'm resting. It's taking over my life. I always second guess doctors, and when I do get test results which basically says that everything's fine, I become okay for like a day or two, then I find something else to obsess about. I'm 32 years old, and I fear that I'm fearing death so much that I'm not even capable of living. Do you think hypnosis downloads can help, or do I need more one-to-one intensive therapy? Okay, Sally, thank you for that. And health anxiety, or hypochondriasis, is an extremely common condition, of course. And again, we see how the imagination plays with us. If we think about what imagination is for, it's really there to help us plan for the future, imagine what other people must or might be feeling. So empathy is processed through the mechanism of the imagination. So it's really a tool, that we can envisage other realities or the future, so that we can plan and work towards a different kind of future, to invent stuff with, to empathize with, and to create with. But like any tool, it can be misused and work against us. So fears like health anxiety, hypochondria, are really examples of using the imagination in such a way that it self-harms us, and that when it gets out of control, then we have real problems. Now, some reassurance does help in the short term, as you say. You have tests and they come back fine, and you're reassured for a day or two. Then your imagination starts again. But what if they miss this, or what's this, or maybe something else is just beginning, and so forth. Now, it might be, although your dad was fine at 75 when he had the prostate cancer, and it was healed through radiotherapy, it may be that there's still a residue of trauma within you associated with hearing that he'd been diagnosed with that. I don't know. But it depends when that was. This has been going on for a couple of years. What happened 2 years ago, or thereabouts, when this health anxiety raised its head? Whenever you have a psychological problem, it's really useful to look at what was going on in your life or in your mind when the problem started. Was it a particularly stressful time? Maybe it was stressful in ways unrelated to health anxiety. The mind, when your mind and body is stressed, the mind or the imagination will find a shape for that stress. And that shape might consist of catastrophic health worries, or relationship insecurities, or anything else. So stress needs a shape, and it's the imagination which creates the shape to contain the stress. So that's one thing to understand. Anything you can do to lessen looking on Google is, of course, a good idea. Dr. Google does seem to have all the answers, but I found that any symptom can indicate just about any disease. So of course, if I Google why am I having headaches, then from dehydration to drinking too much to a brain tumor can come back. And of course, brain tumor locks my attention. That's what I focus on because it's the most dramatic thing. So purposefully limit, think, okay, I'm not going to spend more than 15 minutes a week, time yourself, looking at health symptoms and try and cut it down from there. So that's one very important thing. The other important thing is to remember that we can imagine all kinds of things, but we don't have to buy into the imagination. Okay, so you could even imagine, this might sound weird, but even practicing mindfully imagining being diagnosed with illnesses whilst feeling very calm. So that takes the charge out of the misuse of your imagination, because you only keep going back to something because of the emotion. But I can imagine something awful happening right now, and I can do that very calmly. The same way that a novelist or a horror writer could imagine terrible things happening whilst remaining calm, because they're not believing their imagination. They know it's the imagination. They're separating from it. And that's what people do when they're approaching their emotions and their thoughts in a mindful meditation kind of a way. It's like watching the thoughts and feelings way over there, and you're way over here, and you're outside of them, and you watch them pass, and they don't affect you. So it's the difference between sitting on a beautiful riverbank and watching lily pads glide by, or thrashing around in the middle of the sea. Both involve water or imagination, but in one scenario you're outside of it, you're just observing it, letting it pass, and in the other you're sort of enveloped within it. Okay, so you need, so rather than trying not to imagine these things, still imagine them, but focus on it, just observing the imaginings and breathing calmly. And the way we do that is we extend the out-breath. When you extend the out-breath, you mobilize the relaxation response. That's why people sigh when they're stressed or tired. Okay, and people have a sharp intake of breath when they get anxious. So it's the out-breath. If that's longer than the in-breath, then the body has to relax. If you breathe in that kind of a way, extending the out-breath, whilst maybe even purposefully as a task, imagining these scenarios, then you can begin to unhook the emotion from the use of your imagination. And this is a very important thing to do. So you could think about that. We do have a health anxiety hypnosis download at hypnosisdownloads.com, so you can certainly give that a go. And I think you said you've got that already, but you haven't used it yet. So see how you get on with that. People do have a good result with that very often. The question about whether you need sort of more intensive one-to-one therapy, I try the audio first, and if you feel that you need anything else after that, then of course seek someone out who's solution-focused, who understands the role of the imagination, and can help you relax deeply. These are all skills that any practitioner should have, really. But yes, you're not alone. There are millions of people who misuse their imaginations and construe scenarios which are terrifying to do with health. But it can be overcome, and you can stop doing that. So thank you for your question. Okay, I'll just do one more, I think. This is from Paul. And Paul writes, I've just come to the end of a 2.5-year relationship with a woman I loved very much. The relationship was always volatile and unlike any I'd known before. I've bought the relationship download and I'm using it avidly. The trouble is my mind keeps wandering even when I'm trying to relax and concentrate on the download. My biggest problem is the fact that she lives directly opposite from me, and therefore her house is in my immediate view every day. And of course I hear all her comings and goings, which, as you can imagine, is very unsettling to say the least. The obvious thing to do is to live in the back of the house, but unfortunately this isn't possible. Any hints or tips or other downloads that may help? Okay, Paul, thank you for that question. And yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily suggest you start living in the back of the house. Presumably you have to come out of the front of the house at some point. But it's very disconcerting to still see someone every day once a relationship is finished. You didn't say whether you'd finished the relationship or she had, but I'm presuming there were some good reasons why the relationship came to an end. Now, volatile relationships can, of course, feel very intense, and what is very intense tends to feel highly significant to us, which is one reason why advertising tries to make you emotional so that you feel more attached to what they're trying to sell to you. This is why cult leaders or political leaders, which can be the same thing sometimes, try to make you emotional, because the intensity of the emotion is what hooks you. And we can certainly I'm not saying you didn't love this woman, but we can certainly mistake the power of intensity and passion for a deeper kind of a love. You know, in the same way that loads of sugar can feel dramatic when we consume it, we might mistake it for something which is sustainably nutritious. So there would have been reasons why this relationship came to an end. Now, you want to move on, but she's still around. And it can be an opportunity to hypnotically practice feeling distance from her even when you can see her. Now, I worked with a woman once who had also had an intense relationship with a guy that she worked with, and the relationship had come to an end. She was still very attached to him, and she was seeing him every single day at work. So hypnotically, I had her rehearse seeing him, but he would look very, very small to her, very sort of distanced and kind of insignificant, whilst knowing that he had been very significant. So we worked hypnotically with helping her feel detached from him, even when she saw him every day. And she reported back that it was incredible how he'd wandered into her part of the building, the office building, and she hadn't really felt anything this time. And that continued on and on and on. And she started to build new associations with him. It's almost as if he became just some other guy that she worked with, rather than this great love that she'd had. So the brain is associative. It works through connection. And, we see someone, we feel a certain thing. We go to a certain place, we feel a certain thing. This is called pattern matching, or sometimes called anchoring, where a stimulus becomes anchored to an emotional response within us, that Pavlovian effect. So when you're listening to the download, you could visualize seeing her at the front of the house, or hearing her, and that sort of thing, and feeling very dissociated from that, very detached. So you're teaching the brain a new way of associating. And once you can do that, it's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to do for a human being, because we can change the way we respond. Now, we do have another audio session called Relax with That Person. I think it's called that. And I'll let you know. And if you just put in that person into our search engine on the site, then it should come up. That will be a powerful download for you, I think, to help you reassociate your emotional response to the sight of her, to the sound of her, and so forth. But yes, certainly moving on can be more challenging when we're around somebody, but there are plenty of things you can do. And when you start to see them every day and you feel differently, or you don't feel very much of anything at all, then you know that you've truly moved on.